The winter wind howled through the Colorado mountains like a wounded animal, carrying with it the bitter cold of 1883 and the even colder reality of Eleanor Hartwell's situation. She stood on the porch of her dilapidated cabin, her thin shawl doing little against the elements, watching as the last of her firewood burned low. 3 months had passed since consumption had stolen her husband Samuel, leaving her alone with 2 young daughters and a debt she could never repay. The knock came at dusk, 3 heavy thuds that shook the warped wooden door. Eleanor knew who it was before she opened it. Silas Kane stood there, massive and imposing, his shadow swallowing the threshold. He was a mountain of a man, weathered by years of trapping and hunting in the unforgiving wilderness, with a beard like iron wire and eyes that seemed to have forgotten how to smile. "Mrs. Hartwell," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Your time's up." Eleanor's hands trembled as she clutched the door frame. "Mr. Kane, please. Just another month. The spring thaw will come, and I can work the land, sell the... I've heard your excuses." He pulled a worn paper from his coat, the loan agreement Samuel had signed before his death. "Your husband borrowed $200. With interest, you owe me $300 now. You got nothing to give me. No money, no livestock, nothing." Behind Eleanor, 7-year-old Mary and 5-year-old Ruth huddled together, their faces pale with hunger and fear. They'd been surviving on watered-down soup and stale bread for weeks. Eleanor had already sold everything of value, her wedding ring, Samuel's pocket watch, even the good quilts her mother had made. "What do you want from me?" Eleanor whispered, though she feared she already knew the answer. She'd heard stories about Cain, about women who'd fallen into his debt and disappeared into his mountain cabin, never quite the same when they emerged, if they emerged at all. Cain's jaw tightened. He looked past Eleanor at the children, then back at her. "Your body is mine until I have my sons." The words hit Eleanor like a physical blow. She staggered backward, bile rising in her throat. You can't mean. I'm 42 years old, Mrs. Hartwell. Never had a woman who'd stay with me, never had children to carry on my name. You owe me a debt you can't pay. This is how you'll pay it." His voice was matter-of-fact, as if he were discussing a business transaction. "You'll come to my cabin. You'll keep my house, cook my meals, and you'll give me sons. When I have 2 healthy boys, the debt is paid. You and your daughters can go free." Eleanor felt the world spinning. She'd heard of such arrangements in the frontier, women traded like property, their bodies bartered for survival. But hearing it spoken so plainly, directed at her. "And if I refuse?" Cain's expression didn't change. "Then I take this cabin. It's collateral on the loan. You and those girls will be on the street in the dead of winter. How long do you think you'll last?" Eleanor looked back at Mary and Ruth, their thin faces watching her with complete trust, believing their mother could fix anything. She thought of Samuel, of the life they'd planned, of the dreams that had died with him in that blood-soaked bed. She thought of her own parents, buried in graves back east, and how they'd raised her to be strong, to survive no matter what. "How do I know you'll keep your word?" she asked quietly. "I'm a lot of things, Mrs. Hartwell, but I'm not a liar. 2 sons, and you're free. I'll put it in writing." The journey to Cain's cabin took 4 hours through treacherous mountain passes. Eleanor rode behind him on his massive horse, clutching Mary and Ruth, while their few remaining possessions trailed behind on a pack mule. The cabin, when they finally reached it, was larger than Eleanor expected, a solid log structure with a stone chimney and glass windows, built into the mountainside like a fortress. Inside, it was surprisingly clean but utterly masculine, animal pelts on the walls, a gun rack by the door, simple furniture built from rough-hewn timber. There was a large main room with a stone fireplace, a separate bedroom, and a small loft where Cain said the girls could sleep. "The rules," Cain said, standing by the fire while Eleanor and her daughters huddled together. "You keep the house clean. You cook 3 meals a day. You don't leave without my permission. You do what I say, when I say it. In return, you and your girls get food, shelter, and safety. When you've given me 2 sons, you get your freedom and $100 to start fresh." Eleanor wanted to scream, to rage, to fight. Instead, she nodded, her face a careful mask. "And my daughters? They stay out of my way. I won't harm them, but I won't coddle them either. This is a working household." That first night, Eleanor lay awake in Cain's bed, her body rigid with fear and revulsion, while her daughters slept in the loft above. She waited for Cain to claim what he believed he'd bought, to force himself upon her. But he never came to the bedroom. Instead, he slept on a pallet by the fire in the main room. Days turned into weeks, and a strange routine developed. Eleanor cooked meals from the well-stocked larder. Cain was clearly a successful trapper. She cleaned the cabin, mended his clothes, and tended to her daughters. Cain left early each morning to check his trap lines and returned at dusk with game or furs. He spoke little, ate in silence, and continued to sleep by the fire. Eleanor was confused and wary. Why wasn't he demanding what he'd said he'd bought? Was he waiting for something? Building her trust before he struck. She remained vigilant, a knife hidden beneath her pillow, ready to fight if necessary. One morning, about 6 weeks into their arrangement, Eleanor was preparing breakfast when Mary cried out from the loft. "Mama! Ruth is burning up." Eleanor flew up the ladder to find Ruth feverish and shaking, her skin hot to the touch. Scarlet fever, Eleanor recognized it immediately. The same disease had swept through their town the previous year, killing 3 children. Cain was at the door, preparing to leave for the day. Eleanor rushed to him, her fear overriding her pride. "Ruth is sick. Scarlet fever, I think. I need medicine, a doctor." Cain's expression shifted, something flickering in those hard eyes. Without a word, he grabbed his coat and disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness. He was gone for 2 days. During that time, Eleanor fought for Ruth's life with the desperation of a mother who'd already lost too much. She cooled the fever with snow water, forced willow bark tea down Ruth's throat, and prayed with an intensity that surprised her. She hadn't prayed since Samuel died. Cain returned on the 3rd day, snow-covered and exhausted, carrying a leather bag. Inside were medicines, genuine medicines from a real doctor, expensive and rare in these mountains. He must have ridden hard to the nearest town and back. "The doctor told me how much and when," Cain said gruffly, handing Eleanor a piece of paper with instructions. "Thank you," Eleanor whispered, genuine gratitude breaking through her resentment. "Thank you." Cain nodded and walked away, but Eleanor had seen something in his face, concern, perhaps even fear. This hard mountain man had ridden through a blizzard to save a child who wasn't his, a child belonging to a woman he was essentially holding prisoner. 3 months later, Maya stood in the office of Thornton Ranch, looking at spreadsheets that actually made sense for the first time in her life. James had hired her not out of charity but because she'd proved herself sharp with numbers and sharper with people. She'd started as an administrative assistant, but within weeks, she was coordinating the ranch's community outreach programs, managing schedules, and discovering she had a talent for organization she'd never had the opportunity to develop. Her grandmother's medicine was purchased and consistent. The mortgage was current. Maya had bought a car that didn't require prayers and mechanical expertise to start each morning. But more than the financial stability, Maya felt something shifting inside herself, the constant clench of anxiety loosening, the perpetual exhaustion lifting like morning fog. She'd also met James's daughters, 16-year-old Sophie and 14-year-old Claire, who visited the ranch on weekends. They were good kids, still grieving their mother in quiet ways, still learning who they were becoming. Maya saw in them the girl she'd been before life had gotten hard, and something protective stirred in her heart. One Saturday afternoon, Maya found James in the barn, mending a fence rail with his own hands despite employing a dozen ranch hands who could have done the work. She'd learned this about him: he was wealthy, but he never forgot the work that built the wealth. "I've been thinking about Patricia," Maya said, leaning against a stall door. "About what she did with your kindness. James looked up, wiping sweat from his forehead. Yeah. I want to start something. A fund, maybe, or a program. For people like I was, working themselves to death at minimum wage jobs, trying to care for sick family members, stuck in a cycle they can't break out of because breaking out requires resources they don't have. Maya's words tumbled out in a rush, the idea that had been forming for weeks finally crystallizing. I know I don't have much yet, but I can start small. Maybe one person at a time, like you did for me. James smiled, the lines around his eyes crinkling. I was hoping you'd say something like that. Come with me. He led her to the ranch house, a sprawling structure that managed to feel homey despite its size, and into his study. There, on a shelf between photos of his daughters and his late wife, sat a large glass jar filled with folded pieces of paper. The sugar jar, Maya breathed. Every person I've helped in the last 10 years, James said, pulling the jar down carefully. 63 people, Maya. 63 notes. And you know what the beautiful thing is? About half of them have come back to tell me how they've helped someone else. Patricia's wasn't unique. Kindness really does multiply. He handed her a folder from his desk. This is a proposal for the Thornton Foundation. I've been working on it for a while, but I was waiting for the right person to help me run it. Someone who knows what it's like to need help. Someone who understands dignity and desperation. Someone like you. Maya opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside was a complete business plan for a charitable foundation focused on providing emergency financial assistance to working families in crisis. The initial funding, $2 million. James, I don't have experience with this kind of thing. Neither did I when I started, James interrupted gently. But I learned. And you'll learn. And more importantly, you'll do it with heart, which is more valuable than any MBA. He paused, his voice softening. You don't have to say yes right now. Think about it. But Maya, I've watched you these past 3 months. You're not just good at this work. You're exceptional. And you have something I can never have, you remember what it felt like to be on the other side of that counter, hoping for a miracle. That night, Maya sat with her grandmother at the kitchen table, the same table where she'd opened that life-changing envelope. Elena's health had improved remarkably with proper medication and regular doctor visits, the constant pain easing from her eyes. Nai, Maya said, using the Mandarin word for grandmother, do you remember when you used to tell me that we didn't need much, just enough? Elena smiled, her weathered hand covering Maya's smooth one. I remember. It's what my mother told me. I think I'm learning that enough isn't just about having what you need. It's about being able to give what others need. Maya pulled out the sugar jar proposal. Someone gave me more than enough. Now I want to help make sure other people have enough too. Elena's eyes filled with tears, but they were joyful tears, proud tears. This is what I came to America for, she whispered. Not for money. For this, the chance to help, to build something good, to make the world sweeter. You do this, Bao. You make the world sweeter. Jake moved around the fire and sat beside her. In the distance, Rusty whimpered in his sleep, chasing rabbits through dreams. My son thinks I don't love him, Jake said. Truth is, I love him so much it terrifies me. I stayed away because I thought he deserved better than a failure for a father. I thought love meant giving him everything, and when I couldn't, I figured I had nothing to offer. He laughed bitterly. We're both fools, you and me. You traded love for success and lost everything. I avoided my son for the same damn reason. What are you going to do? She asked. I'm going to Salvation Ridge tomorrow. I'm going to walk into that mine covered in dust, with empty pockets and a full heart, and I'm going to tell my boy the truth. That I've made mistakes. That I'm sorry. That I love him more than my pride. Jake smiled. Maybe he'll forgive me. Maybe he won't. But at least he'll know that compassion, real, vulnerable, inconvenient compassion, is the only inheritance I have to give." The woman closed her eyes. "I can't give you back what you lost. I know. I can't even fix my own curse." "Maybe not. But maybe we can help each other remember something important." Jake reached into his saddlebag and pulled out the letters he'd written to his son, dozens of them, never sent. Letters full of love, apology, hope. He handed them to her. "Read these when you're lonely. Let yourself feel what's in them. It won't break the curse overnight, but maybe it's a start. Maybe remembering what love looks like is the first step to finding your way back to it." She clutched the letters like a lifeline. "Why would you help me? After what I tried to do to you?" "Because somebody once helped me when I had nothing to offer in return. A little girl and her mama reminded me that my life had value, even when I couldn't see it. Now I'm passing it forward." He stood, offering his hand. "Come with me to Salvation Ridge. Help me face my son. Be a witness to what happens when someone chooses love over fear." She took his hand, and as she stood, something shifted in the desert air. The supernatural weight lifted slightly. She wasn't cured, transformation takes time, but she was more human than she'd been in a century. They rode into Salvation Ridge 2 days later, Jake on his horse and the woman, who'd remembered her name was Sarah, walking alongside. The mining town was as hard and dusty as Jake remembered, but it felt different now. Less like a place of judgment and more like home. He found his son, Daniel, emerging from the mine shaft, black with coal dust and hollow-eyed with exhaustion. The young man froze when he saw his father. "Pa. Danny." Jake's voice cracked. "I came to tell you I'm sorry. Sorry I stayed away. Sorry I thought money and success mattered more than just being here. I don't have much to offer you except the truth. I've never stopped loving you. Not for one single day." Daniel's jaw worked, emotions warring across his face. Then he saw the tears in his father's eyes, real, vulnerable, unashamed, and something broke. He crossed the distance between them and pulled Jake into a fierce embrace. "I never wanted your money, Pa," Daniel sobbed into his father's shoulder. "I just wanted you." Sarah watched from a distance, tears streaming down her own face. As she witnessed their reunion, she felt something she'd thought lost forever, a flutter of genuine joy, a whisper of love without price or condition. It hurt, like blood returning to a numb limb, but it was the most beautiful pain she'd ever known. That night, as Jake and Daniel talked until dawn, rebuilding their relationship one honest word at a time, Sarah sat by a different campfire on the edge of town. She opened Jake's letters and read them by starlight. With each word of love, with each expression of imperfect but genuine compassion, she felt herself becoming more real. The curse wasn't broken, not yet. But the desert's grip on her soul had weakened. And in the morning, when she walked back toward the wasteland, it wasn't as a ghost offering false bargains. It was as a woman searching for others who might need to remember, as she had, that compassion isn't weakness. It's the only thing that makes us real. Miles away, Jake woke to find his son asleep in the chair across from him, a gentle smile on his exhausted face. Rusty was curled at his feet. Through the window, dawn painted the desert gold. He had no ranch. No fortune. No grand legacy. He had something better, love that required nothing but itself to be whole. And in a harsh world that constantly whispered that kindness was foolishness, that compassion was currency to be hoarded, Jake Thornton had learned the one truth the desert could never steal. The bravest thing a person can do is keep their heart soft in a hard world. The richest inheritance we can leave is teaching others that their capacity to care, even when it costs them everything, is what makes them magnificent. Fear and desire are easy. They make us small. But compassion? Compassion makes us infinite.